I want to bring in Nick Ackerman, who is an assistant special prosecutor with the Watergate Special Prosecution Force. He's also an MSNBC legal analyst and partner with Dorsey and Whitney. Nick, for people who don't follow this as closely as somebody like you does or we do, what's all this parsing about whether he's speaking to the Intel Committee or he's being interviewed by Mueller or he's going to speak to a grand jury? Because my understanding is you can't lie to any of them.
That's right. I mean, whatever he says to one, at least whatever he says to the Congressional Committee is ultimately going to go to the prosecutors and go to the grand jury.
Right.
Now, what he says to the grand jury will not go to the Congress. It won't go the other way around. But nonetheless, he has to be very careful what he says to the committees, because all of that is going to be read and reread by the prosecutor's
So he's got
office.
a lawyer who's clearly got to prepare him for any of those types of interviews. So I guess it becomes confusing to people as to when Sarah Huckabee Sanders says that we need to discuss the parameters of what's going on, when Bannon is before the House Intel Committee and apparently his lawyer is texting with the White House as he's being asked questions and then on a piecemeal basis declining to answer some of them, citing executive privilege. In the end, Bannon's got some kind of story. Can Mueller definitely get that story?
I think he can. First, certainly, he claimed, as I understand it, executive privilege over the period of time between the election and the time that Trump took office, which was January 20th, 2017.
Right.
So during that period of time...
Trump wasn't the executive.
No, he wasn't the executive. So there's no executive privilege, just like you don't have a lawyer-client privilege with somebody who's not a lawyer.
Right.
So the only conclusion you can really draw from that is someone's trying to hide something and cover up something. And I think the obvious issue here is Michael Flynn. That was the time period when Michael Flynn was talking to the Russian ambassador about U.S. sanctions. So the question is, what does Bannon know about that? Why is the White House so concerned about keeping him talking from that period of time?
So I think most Americans, or many Americans, would think that the information that gets to Robert Mueller is the information that they're most interested in. This House Intelligence Committee has proved itself time and time again to be subject to some infighting and politicization. If you're Robert Mueller, where do you want to see the Bannon testimony the most? Where do you want to interview him personally, or have your team interview him, or do you want a grand jury subpoena?
Well, hopefully the FBI agents interviewed him when they served the subpoena. So that gets them some idea of just how cooperative Bannon's going to be.
Right.
Short of that, they may make a reasonable decision just to put him in the grand jury. Because, again, the wild card here is Michael Flynn. They know what Michael Flynn has said. They know what he can say about Bannon. They know what he can say about Trump. Bannon's lawyer doesn't know any of that.
And what's the way out for Bannon there? Pleading the Fifth?
He could plead the Fifth, exactly. I mean, that's one way to get out from under it.
Right. All right. Nick, good to see you as always. Thank you very much. Nick Ackerman is an MSNBC legal analyst.